research, there are things that unexpectedly pop up. If, for example, we thought by using SBM, the results will be better because that is what literature says. Okay? But then when we experimented with SBM, suddenly result is sangat-sangat good. So how do we deal with that? Definitely, kita tak boleh lie, right? Because doing research, we have to be honest. We have to be sincere. Okay, we offer explanation. We try to offer explanation. But of course, it will be full of
merah.
but we have to
merah?
be sincere. Tak boleh lah you for example, supposedly in the research, based on the literature, so throughout the research, you are trying your heart, you're trying to put all the effort, okay, in proving that.
Boleh jalan lah. Boleh jalan lah kalau pakai. Okay. Alright.
Ini dia rekod ke kamera.
Oh, okay.
So dia
Tak tahu pakai mana.
kat situ dulu.
Ah, sini. Tak pernah jadi artis pun. Tapi nanti Jin tolong bantu kot. Oh, Yin, tolong siap. So that I can move. Oh, boleh kot. Boleh dengarkan suara saya?
Yang tu kita tak dengar.
Oh, untuk dekat situ. Okay, okay. Tapi dekat situ capture lah. Alright, okay. Alright, okay. So you tak dengar tapi the camera is for the rakaman. Alright, so we move to the next one. Okay, kenapa ianya penting? Because we're going to have some hands-on on connecting to research questions. So that nanti you will translate to your own studies. Macam mana you want to connect to your research questions. Okay, and then title number 4, kita akan cover on handling the unexpected results. Okay, I used to tell my students during my PhD, even though I have hypothesis, tiba-tiba when I carry out the experiment, suddenly the co-actor ni tiba-tiba jadi main actor. I thought because of doing A, it improved my result. Tapi actually, by doing B. So how do I deal with that? Tiba-tiba dia jadi dua pelakon utama dalam my story. Whereas from chapter 1, I keep on saying the main actor will be A. By doing A, it should blah blah blah. But then part of the experiment is doing part B, for example. But when I run the experiment, B outperform A. So how I deal with that? Okay, we have to deal with that. Okay. And then after that, we are going to cover the do's and don'ts. What should you or how do you write your discussion section and what to avoid when writing discussion section. Okay, and finally, we are going to have hands-on. But in between, we have some examples too, so that you can exercise what we discuss. Right? Any questions, you can just stop me because this is informal. Okay. Alright, let us move to the importance of discussion first. Okay, so basically, there are 4 important things when we discuss about why discussion section matters. Okay, the first one is the interpret your results. This is the place where you do your interpretation. Remember, you have to segregate between results and discussion. Okay, so results, you just convey what is the results. Normally people put in a table and they put like a simple paragraph to show that perhaps method A is better than method B by how many percent. That's all. They do not elaborate or they do not interpret. Simply state what you have achieved. Okay, and again, normally they put in the table form, okay, so that it is easier for the reader to know what is the result. And some you can put depending on your results. Okay, sometimes it could be a graph, sometimes it could be a table. Okay, for example, we do not encourage you to put both. For example, you have like 4 graphs, 4 tables. Okay, table you can push to your appendix. Okay, because if they want to refer to the details, they can go to your appendix to look at it. Okay, again, you have to discuss, basically the rule of thumb is that whatever is important for your thesis, you have to put in the text or the main body of your thesis. And the one that, for example, if we don't look at it, okay, as a reader, for example, if I don't look at it, I still understand your work. So that kind of information you can put into you can put in appendix. That means it is not critical, but if I want to refer, I can go to your appendix. So you have to judge, okay, whether it is really important to be put in the thesis or you can push to the appendix. Okay, but if your thesis is very thin, then okay, put in your thesis. This is especially to those who have lots and lots of results and lots of discussion. And the results can be presented in many forms. Okay, so then you have to decide what to be put in your thesis and what to be put in the appendix. Okay, but do not put very important things in appendix. Again, you have to remember, appendix are those things which are optional. That means it will not affect, okay, the flow of your thesis. Okay, so the first one, why discussion section matters the most is that this is the place where you interpret your results. Okay, results, interpretation is not just by highlighting the numbers. For example, accuracy is 96.4% or 97.9%. It's not just saying the numbers, but what is it? Okay, so it should explain what they mean. For example, most of the students nowadays, they do deep learning and they compare with conventional machine learning. Okay, and of course, it is not surprising that in most cases, deep learning will outperform. Okay, for example, you did the same thing. You did a comparison, but your results, the conventional machine learning is better, for example. Okay, so this is what you have to highlight. Okay, in most of the studies, it shows that the deep learning almost all the time they outperform the conventional machine learning. But in my case, for example, or in my case study, the conventional machine learning outperforms. So that is more important to say rather than saying that, okay, conventional machine learning is 99.9%, whereas the deep learning is 92.2%. Which one is more to you between the two statements? Okay, which one is more interesting to read? Yeah, the first one, because you are stating the conventional outperforming the deep learning. It is more interesting rather than you just say that it is one is 99.9%, another one is 92.2%. Okay, so again, this is the place where you can interpret your results. Okay, so again, discussion is not a summary. Okay, it tells the reader what your results mean. Okay, and how they relate to your initial problem. This is the place. Normally, at the beginning of the discussion, we first relate or we reinstate what is the problem statement or what is our hypothesis. Okay, this is just to remind them, this is what we are working on. Okay, them in this context are the readers or your panels. Okay, so it's okay to repeat, but not excessively reporting, saying it. Okay, for example, in the discussion, start again with your hypothesis or start with the problem that you are working on or the issues. Okay? Okay. This is again why discussion, and I like discussion so much because there are so many things. You can look at many angles. Okay, sometimes in terms of accuracy, the proposed method that you did in your study, maybe it is not that significant. Improvement is not significant, but in terms of efficiency, perhaps it is more significant. So you can look at many angles. Okay, if for example, like an analogy, for example, maybe you have 2 kids, right? The second one is not as smart as the brother, a little bit less smart, okay? But in terms of his akhlak, he is good. So you can highlight the akhlak side, the behavior side. Because the second son, maybe in terms of behavior, he is good. So how can you highlight him? By highlighting the behavior, not by highlighting his IQ. Same goes to your results. Okay? See from the perspective where your results is better. From which aspect? Okay? So that is what you are going to highlight, and make sure that it aligns with what you said in the objective. If in the objective says that it's going, or in hypothesis it says that it's going to be more accurate, but the result shows that so-so, at par with, but in terms of effectiveness, it is a lot better. Okay, so my advice is go back to your chapter 1, because chapter 1 is a living chapter. Okay, until you end your research, you keep on updating your chapter 1. Okay, so you can go and mend or correct your chapter 1. For example, for that particular objective, you put efficiency. Okay, so it goes back. It's good because the experiments is the truth, right? Then you have to go back to chapter 1, update your chapter 1. Okay, chapter 1 is not we call it Bible or Quran that you cannot change. Okay, chapter 1 can be changed depending on the results that you obtain later on in your research. Okay, any questions? All right. Okay, so next point, why the discussion section matters. Besides interpreting the results, it is also connects findings to the research questions. Okay, remember, you begin your thesis by saying what is your thought or your objectives, your hypothesis, and so on, and then after that you move to your methodology, and after that you run your experiment, and then later you get the results. So the next logical step is how these results ties back to the objectives and also the problem statement that you made in your chapter 1. Okay, so this is where we close the loop on your study goals. Okay, so we don't, research should end. Okay, so if it is ongoing, kalau you buat PhD pun, kalau more than 9 years ongoing, kita akan just terminate your study. Okay, because it reached the ceiling. Okay, and it doesn't end. So does your research. It has to end somewhere. Okay, that's why we put a scope. Scope is the boundary of your work. I know that your topic, maybe, it is not ending yet. For example, because it has to be staggered. The improvement has to be staggered. You are not solving the rocket science problem. Okay, and you are given only 2 semesters to do it. So based on that time period, you have to scope your work, scope down your work. Okay, and that's why we have future work. Okay, it ends here, but it can still proceed if someone wants to proceed. Okay, so at least we tie the loop. Okay, we close the loop. Okay, so discussion is the place where we tie the loop. Okay, next is shows your critical thinking. Discussion can prove that you understand more than just how to code. Okay, because how to code, perhaps I can go to programmer at maybe just someone who has certificate in programming, they can just execute the code. Okay, but does that person deserves a degree? No, right? So when doing your discussion, your criticality, how critical you are, looking at the results and discuss or interpret the results, that is more important. Okay? And the last one is demonstrates originality. So highlights your unique contributions to the field, regardless whether it is undergraduate or it is master's or it is PhD. Okay, I believe that everyone has its own contribution. It's a matter of the size of the contribution, whether it is a small, tiny contribution or it can be a significant contribution to the field. For example, you can use the existing method, but then you apply to the different data set. Okay, or perhaps you synthesize your own data set, or you simulate the environment, you collected the data and so on. But this particular method, which has been used by someone else in other data sets, okay, is new when you take that particular algorithm or method and apply on your data set. So at least there is a contribution in terms of how that particular algorithm works with your data set. That is what you need to highlight. It's not about, okay, you have done modification on deep learning or what, because we don't expect that to come from you. Okay, but everyone must have a contribution. Okay? Ada tak contribution? What is it?
What is the best sampling method for imbalanced data set?
So it is comparative study. Okay, even though it is comparative study, okay, perhaps those techniques are available out there, but then maybe in doing comparison, some other people compare with maybe 5 techniques, but they are different techniques than yours, or maybe 3 of them overlap with your study, but maybe one of them is new. Okay, so and also in terms of comparison, again, you can look at other dimensions as well. Okay, maybe people keep on compare in terms of speed, but you compare in terms of interpretability of the model. Okay, so there are so many things that you can do. That's why research is very interesting. It's just a matter of looking at different angles. Okay, sometimes if you are very good in writing and very good at looking at many angles, even though the result is so-so, but then your writing can be very impactful. Okay, so this is where we do the writing, dekat discussion. Alright, okay. Any questions? Tak ada. You can just interrupt me. Okay, so as a conclusion, why discussion section matters? Again, discussion is where your thinking speaks louder than your results. Sebab you can put your voice to it. Kenapa results tu macam tu, for example? Okay, other people semua result okay. Okay, digunakan, for example, you buat spam detection, okay, and then out there banyak juga study on spam detection using machine learning, okay, but then your spam data set ialah you collected sendiri, contoh, okay, you tak guna the standard or open source publicly available data set, and then your results different. Okay, your results is not that good. And then bila you study, what is the difference between my data set and the data set used by others? And suddenly you found that the distribution of your data set, spam and non-spam, different daripada distribution dekat published works. So you can explain, maybe the results is bad sebab distribution dekat your data set is like this. Okay, sedangkan orang lain punya distribution is different from mine. That could be the reason. Tapi don't be so certain. When you talk about the possibility that contribute to such results, you kena guna banyak word like perhaps, it might be due to, you know, because kita tak boleh buat uncertain. Kita tak boleh so certain. Okay, because this is explaining kenapa results macam tu. Okay? Okay. Alright, so again, as a conclusion, the role of discussion section, it reveals your understanding, insight dan juga voice as a researcher. But the main point yang I letak dalam italic ialah, it is a strong discussion can elevate average results into meaningful contribution. See, this is kalau you pandai tulis discussion, even though results dia biasa-biasa je, you still can elevate this result kepada meaningful contribution. Okay, that's why you kena tahu which angle to highlight. Okay, you can discuss with your supervisors on that matters. Okay. Okay, now kita dah faham why discussion is very important. Now we move to purpose of discussion. What is the purpose of discussion? Kita dah tahu dia tu important, tapi now let us go to and look at why purpose is important. So here we listed four purpose of the discussion. The first one is explain the meaning of the results. Okay, for example, this is where we interpret the significance of your findings in your own words. Okay, so this is the place where you answer sebenarnya, you menjawab. Okay, people can ask, okay, you dah report such a result, so people can ask you question, especially the panel. They will ask you, so what? Agaknya macam mana you nak reply? Contoh, kita katalah improvement is 3% or 7% daripada the established or the published work. So I can ask you, so what? How could you answer that? Jadi untuk kita tidak membolehkan dia tanya that question. That's why discussion is very important. Okay, you terus offer the reasoning, or terus you offer explanation to it, or terus you offer the interpretation to it. Even though 7%, oh, you so happy lah pergi present sebab 7% kan, you run t-test, it is so significant. But I can ask you, so what? Okay, that's why, for example, if you talk about detection accuracy, for example, you work on the health area, for example, it's about recognizing, image recognition, and you want from the image, you want to recognize whether it is tumor cell or not tumor cell. So, okay, let's assume that is the subject, okay? And then you improve the result by 7%. You sepatutnya terus you relate kepada the domain, which is healthcare. How important is this 7% brings to the healthcare sector? Especially in terms of recognizing the tumor punya cell dekat image. Okay, this is to show that this is important, even though it's just 5%. Okay, because accuracy in healthcare is very important. Okay, ataupun you work in network, for example, network security. Kalau you boleh reduce false alarm by 3%, then you kaitkan dengan the domain itself. Because for example, people who work at Assoc, for example, they are dealing with thousands of false alarms. If you can reduce 3%, you calculate how much they can save time. Okay, that's how you put that. Though the result is just 3%, it gives a big impact to the domain that you are working on. Okay? That is to close. For example, if they see this, they will not ask you question like 7%, so what? Okay, because you can relate to the importance or significance of that improvement in the domain that you are working on. Okay? For example, efficiency, speed, all those can be related to the importance of the domain. Okay? Any questions so far? If you don't want to ask me, you can ask Jim, Miss Hazina, and also Miss Fazrina, Dr. Fazrina as well. They are equally knowledgeable and have experience, okay, supervising students. Okay, all right. Okay, so that is explaining the meaning of the result. So important, sebab this is where you put your voice. And convince them that your work is really worth. Okay, next point is address research objectives. As I said earlier, it is very important. Discussion is like you are closing the loop. Kalau kita kira ekosistem, the last phase of the ecosystem. Okay, this is where you close the loop. Okay, because you pun nak grad kan, so kita kena tutuplah research ni. So how to tutup the research is by doing the discussion. Okay, so we have to address the research objective. For example, here you can relate your findings directly to your original goals or research questions or hypothesis. Okay, whatever that you have promised in your chapter 1. Again, chapter 1 is not a Bible, okay, whereby you can change, but not a major change, okay. Kalau major change, that means your literature tak bagus, okay, sebab you jump to hypothesis without doing a thorough literature. That's why you punya basis or your belief is wrong, okay. Okay, and remember, normally panel, they remember your project 1. Kalau you tukar besar-besar sangat, okay, you have to refer to coordinator and also your supervisor. Tapi a small tukar-tukar is okay. Okay? Alright. Okay, so important here is for you to revisit your objective dekat sini. Okay, just to remind them, this is my objective and I have achieved that. You tak cakap macam tu, but then the aim is to say that. Okay, that's why you have to reiterate what is your objective, and somehow, okay, by discussing the results, you are telling them basically your objective has been achieved. Okay, so this is the place where you can do that. Okay, you address the research objective. Okay, next is discussion is also a place where you can compare with the previous work, or some people they call it benchmarking. Okay, okay, now you came up with new method, for example, or the modified method. Okay, and then you already get the results. Okay, the next step is, okay, because we want to compare the standing between our work and the existing work. That's why you have to compare. Basically kita tak boleh shock sendirilah. Okay, we thought that we are very good, tapi kita tak tengok pun sebelah. Okay, for example, you exam, you rasa ini dah bagus sangat dah hantar jawapan, but then keluar result, your friend dapat A+, you dapat A je. So you know that you are not as good as your friend. Same thing goes to your work. We have to do benchmark to know, because dalam research ni, you kena imagine that we are in one space, dalam satu domain. For example, katalah kita buat tadi, contoh healthcare, kita nak recognize tumorous cell, okay, and you are not alone. Okay, and then based on literature, maybe there are about 50 existing works. So you need to compare with others so that you know where you stand dalam landscape recognition of the image of the tumorous cell. Di mana you sepatutnya? Are you dekat dengan kelompok machine learning, or are you dekat dengan kelompok let's say statistical methods? Contoh kita kata dekat machine learning, how different we are from the rest. Okay, so that's why we have to do comparison with previous work. Okay, this is where you position your study within the existing body of the knowledge where you are. Okay, you close kepada siapa? I'm sure that kalau you buat research, you already adopt satu or dua anchor work, right? Sebab your work must be close to one of those works. Betul tak? Okay, ke ada yang tak ada anchor work? Anchor work ialah work yang close to you. Yang close to you, itulah yang kita akan benchmark later on. Sebab dia sangat-sangat close to us, and we want to see how different ours compared to theirs. Okay, some people call it as a baseline, some people call it as a benchmark work, but I call it as an anchor work. Okay, di mana your work is originated from and you differ in certain aspects saja. Okay. You have to give feedback lah. You tak boleh diam. You dah besar ni.
Sometimes what they do is they have like okay, I nak tengok fishing, and then they take SEM, and then they take 12 rhythms. They just plug things out of me. So they don't start with an anchor report. They don't start there. So when they want to come benchmarking, they want to find who do I benchmark with. So then they have a problem. So then the starting point was in.
Okay. Yeah, betul. Okay. If you are facing with that problem, memang you akan ada dilema when I ask you question, what is your anchor work? Sebab research must be originated from a baseline. You must have an anchor work that you want to improve ataupun you want to add something extra to it. Okay, that's why bila kita boleh benchmark later on, kita compare dengan the one that we use as a base. Kalau tak, memang kita trouble unless you do a comparative work. Kalau comparative study ni ataupun comparative work, orang macam dia, contoh, he has to do a lot of analysis, he has to do a lot of interpretation. Okay, sebab comparison bukan speed dan accuracy saja. We need more than that. Suspend tak? Okay. Okay. So for those yang buat comparative study, make sure that you analyse from many dimensions. Okay. So that it adds some. Dia kena ada spice to your thesis. Okay. Spice ini adalah from these angles. Banyak-banyak angles. Okay. Menyebabkan the comparative study tu becomes interesting. Okay. Alright, and the last one is suggest implications or applications. So remember, selepas you dah buat ni, then you try to generalize balik. Orang buat research memang macam tu. At the end kita dah dapat results and kita fikir pula, from this result, di mana lagi kita boleh implement and how it will affect the society. Okay, dalam our domain. For example, I work on adaptive IDS. Okay, at the end, and then I narrow down that, saying that okay, I managed to blah 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 blah, the results improve and so on. And then I have to generalize again. Okay, kalau kita buat scientific research, normally macam tu. At the end, I can say that the mechanism that I introduce in adaptive IDS yang I propose is basically can be used in other domains. For example, in fraud detection. Because the adaptability introduced in the model can be applied dalam domain yang sama nature dengan network security. Okay, so kita kena letak apa implications dia. Okay, and how it can be applied. Okay, remember dalam discussion ada 4 benda yang kita kena buat. Satu, explain the meaning of the results dalam your context. Okay, katakanlah tadi macam 7% kita dapat image recognition kita tadi on the tumorous or tumor cell by 7%. Then you cakap dalam healthcare it is very important blah 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 blah. That is putting the context. Okay, results tu you letak dalam konteks domain. Kedua, address the research objectives sebab kita nak cakap bahawa okay, I'm done and I achieve all the results. Okay, ketiga, compare with previous work because we want to position our study among the studies in the same domain. And finally, kita kena end with implications or the application of your findings ataupun your proposed model ke, proposed algorithm ke, proposed framework and so on. Okay? As usual, no question. Alright.
Most of them, if I remember correctly, they're not proposing a new algorithm or proposing a new framework or whatever. Most, I would say 70% is doing comparative work. Who is doing comparative work? Can you put up your hands, please?
Dalam a quarter, about 25%.
With the framework, then dia tak ada lah. Mostly is that. That's why when we talk about we want to see where we can apply the implications of the framework, they don't have a framework that they
Okay, but I think we have to change sebab kalau you just do a comparison, chances for you to publish, I mean as a reviewer, we ourselves, okay, kalau buat comparative study and you want to publish your work, there are so many things that we can comment on. Okay, sebab how different is your comparative study compared to others? You tak boleh cakap, oh others tak ada SVM, I letak SVM. Is it significant? you know. Tetapi if you're reporting the results, chances to be published is high. Okay, especially using your own data set, for example. And of course, you kena benchmark dengan open source punya data, right? To say that, I mean, at least you can, okay, when you publish with your own data set, okay, the danger ataupun satu benda yang you kena ingat ialah people might say that your work produce good results sebab you dah massage the data. Sebab you use your own data set. In order massage the data means you manipulate the data such that it works well with your method. Kalau you hanya report satu data set, that's why I normally ask my students, satu kalau you ada your own data set, okay, but then guna lagi satu data set which is open source ataupun publicly available data set. If your method consistently better, it shows that yeah, your method works and it is robust regardless of what data set. Okay, itu the danger when you use your own data set sahaja. That's why I encourage tambah lagi data set yang used by other researchers. Kalau both are working fine with the both data sets, still your system, your proposed method to still giving the good results, that mean it is good. The method is good because it is very consistent. Regardless giving apalah data set, still they perform. Okay? Alright. Okay, so next. Okay, now we do reflection, okay? So I want you to take a moment to think about your own project because everyone buat research-based project, right? So you need to answer the tiga questions ni, okay? Somewhere lah dekat your notebook. Sebab kenapa saya suruh buat macam ni? Sebab dia akan bagi a basis to your discussion. Okay, cuba jawab soalan, for example, what is the main results of your project? Kalau your project tu banyak results, rank them. Which one is the most important results? Okay, everyone write what is your most important results. Okay, done? Ke masih fikir apa ni contribution?
At this point, you dah have the result. I'm hoping you have result. Okay. So from all your results, which one that is the most important to answering a lot of the questions? The reason of why you did this project in the first place.
Yeah, the main. Okay, again, the purpose we are doing this reflection sebab bawah dia help you start linking your findings to your research goals and begin forming the ideas for your discussion section. That is why we ask this question, these three questions. Dia menjadi basis to your discussion nanti. Okay, so once you are done with that, move to the second question. Okay, what does this result mean in relation to your research questions or your hypothesis or your problem statement or your objectives? Okay, yang mana-mana relevant to you. Okay, so macam mana dia link to your other cases where the students dekat depan dia kata dia akan improve accuracy, dekat belakang dia measure speed. Apa kait? Okay. No. I mean, as an examiner kan, kita tengok your objective. Okay, this is your promise. Bila saya tengok experiment run, measure speed. For example, depan cakap accuracy, itu pun dah kena tembak dah. Bukanlah tembak. I mean, you give the points to the panel to shoot you. Okay, you yourself provide.
If the panel is starting to shoot you, you don't get bloody. Your marks just disappear. So we don't want your marks to disappear.
Exactly.
Everything should be there.
Exactly. Jadi jangan tinggalkan all these loops to them. Okay? Because kita macam piranha, panel ni macam piranha. Dia lihat je dekat mana, zap dia akan tangkap. So kalau seorang dah cakap macam tu, the other one akan tambah. Akan bigger and bigger. We don't invite them, you know, jangan bagi tunjuk your soft spot. Okay? Because they will, their purpose is to train you to be tougher, okay, and train you to be critical, not to shoot you for no purpose, okay, because they want you to be more critical. Okay, so that's why whatever that you do, remember your promise in your chapter 1. Okay, so whatever you do is actually fulfilling the promise that you did in your chapter 1. Okay, so make sure that all the experiments that you did are aligned to what you want to show. If it is accuracy, make sure that you measure accuracy. If it is efficiency, then maybe you need to do big O notation calculation of your algorithm. Okay, if it is a speed, then it has to be a speed. How you measure the speed? Okay, and also if it is computation, again, memory, whatever, okay, normally the big O, we use the big O notation. Okay, so make sure that the experiments that you do, or you already did, actually answering what you promised in your chapter 1. Okay? Okay, next, the last question is, why might these results be important or useful to others? This will be the significant and also the implications, how people can use your results. Okay, after you finish with your answer to the second question, move to the third question. Okay, apa sebab you rasa that your result ni, okay, why might this result boleh jadi so important and useful to others? For example tadi, untuk healthcare, we are talking about image recognition, okay, more accurate recognition of the tumorous cell, for example. So what is the impact to the healthcare? Okay, so this is what you need to do in the third question. Yep.
Also, because they have discussed the importance and the problems in the problem background. So now they need to pull that back and say how this thing.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's why dalam your project 1, we keep on asking you in the problem background, problem tak clear, right? Kalau problem tak clear, macam mana kita boleh cakap bahawa it is important to solve, ataupun your findings ni is so significant in solving the problem kalau problem pun tak clear. Okay? Ni nak sumpah semua jadi lecturer juga macam dengan doktor Kasmuni.
Sekarang ni kat satu. So they are not facing the reality of what have I done. So dia macam tengah nabrak.
You pun kena sumpah UG kan, masa UG kan. Okay, done? Okay, I'm not going to look at your answer, but you boleh guna answer ni as a basis to your writing of your discussion section. Okay? So you dah identify the main results. Second, relate balik kepada problem statement, the objective or your hypothesis, or in fact it can be related to the research questions. And finally, it is the implications of the results. Okay, implications of the output yang you dah obtain. Okay, katakanlah you dah hybrid the model between conventional machine learning plus the deep learning, for example. Apa-apalah you dah hybrid. So apa implications of that hybrid model to certain domains? Okay, then this will be the third point that you have to highlight in your discussion. Okay, now we move to the structure of discussion. Okay, so basically there are 6 points or 6 elements of your 6 elements that should appear in your discussion, okay, or should be the vital organs of your discussion section. The first element is you need to restate the main findings briefly. Okay, so this is where you summarize the key results. Normally results is discussed, or results is described in the previous section. Okay, now you pergi kepada discussions. I assume that you dah buat dah results punya description sebelum ni. Okay, you explain the results. So when you come to the discussion, what you need to do is that you need to restate the main findings. This is just to remind them, or the readers ataupun the panels, what are the results that you obtained sebelum ni. Okay, in the previous section. Okay, so summarize the key results to provide context for the discussion. Okay. again, this structure ni kita boleh gunakan untuk you develop your discussion section. Okay, the structure yang 6 ni, okay, all these important organs ni kena ada dalam your discussion. Okay, it become parts of your discussion. Okay. For the discussion, untuk point number 1, you begin your discussion by reminding the reader of your most important findings. Okay, tetapi make sure that you jangan duplicate, jangan exactly. Ada juga student yang dia copy paste dekat results, dia sebut balik dekat situ. Of course kita kata kita restate, tetapi don't use the same words. You rephrase. Okay, we are good in catching duplicates, phrases, duplicate sentences. Okay, so you kena rephrase. Walaupun you cakap benda yang sama, but you use different words when you come to discussion. Okay, so first is kita akan remind the reader apa the most important findings yang kita jumpa dalam results kita. Okay, so but make sure that it is concise, sebab actually yang berjela-jela tu kita dah buat dalam our results. So bila it comes to the discussion, make sure that it is concise. Okay? Okay, you boleh treat restate main findings briefly ni, the first part ni seperti a transition, sebab when we talk about results, it's about data. 98.7%, 92% or 3% less, those are all the data, which is raw data. So bila kita masuk dekat discussion section ni, the first part yang kita buat ialah restate the main findings. You treat this place as a transition daripada raw data kepada meaningful insights. This is the place kita nak transit. Okay, that's why we rephrase, kita letak dia dalam a short and concise format. Okay, next kita akan explain what the findings means. This is where we interpret the significance of the results in relation to your study, in relation to the domain that you are doing. Okay, ataupun case study yang kita gunakan or implement dalam our study. Okay, next is compare with the literature. Remember kita kata tadi kita kena benchmark. So the first component is restate the findings. Second component ialah put in the context, the findings in the context. Ketiga, we compare with the existing works or benchmark. Okay, this is where we discuss macam mana your findings align or contrast with previous research. Don't be surprised, sometimes kita punya findings contrast with the previous research, but we have to tell the truth, then tell the truth. Okay, contoh sebelum ni semua orang yang gunakan SVM dapati results dia bagus, tapi bila you guna tak bagus. You have to state that. Tapi again, nanti saya akan discuss on how to handle unexpected results. Kita kena cari reason. For example, the same thing happened to me when I suggested SVM to one of the vendor that work with. Basically, we are the consultant that design the solution. So dalam designing the solution, we suggested SVM. Okay, but then bila the vendor ambil our blueprint, solution blueprint tu, bila dia implement SVM, dia jadi teruk, results dia jadi teruk. And bear in mind that masa kita buat tu, kita dah buat prototype and it works well. The reason is that SVM ni tak scalable. Bila vendor ambil work in the bigger data, okay, performance dia drop. Teruk sangat performance dia drop. Because based on the literature so far, sebab kita kan buat research, kita tak buatlah data yang sangat-sangat banyak seperti real world applications. Okay, so it works well with our environment. Tapi once we put in the real world situation problem, okay, it deals with a lot of data and SVM punya performance drop. Okay, and the vendor came back to us and I studied again and I found that SVM adalah poor in scalability is not scalable. So we propose untuk tukar menggunakan random forest and it works well. Okay, so you can say that, for example, if you run the experiment, this is real case, for example, SVM tu perform sangat bagus dalam banyak segi, but then dalam this particular data set you guna SVM, it doesn't perform well. Offer the solution, offer the explanation kenapa jadi macam tu. Okay, boleh faham? Okay. Alright, and then after that, okay, discuss the implications. This is where you highlight the practical or theoretical impact of your findings. Again, as I told you, tadi kita letak dalam konteks. Okay, now kita tunjukkan apa implications of the results ataupun the findings dalam mungkin not just satu or dua domain, perhaps banyak domain, as long as the nature dia sama dengan nature domain yang kita work in our study. That could be things that you can write in your implications or applications of your proposed method or proposed model or whatever. Okay, framework and so on. Okay, and then the next step is, okay, once we have said all the good things about your findings also has limitations. Okay, then admit the limitations. Okay, so acknowledge any constraints that may have affected the outcomes of your results. Okay, maybe your results is not that good because of the noisy data, perhaps, or the missing data set. The missing data, for example, the missing data ni macam ni. For example, satu record tu ada nama, ada age, ada some health information, ada address and so on. The second data tiba-tiba tak ada gender. The third data tiba-tiba tak ada age. That is what we call missing data. And of course, okay, machine learning dia tak boleh deal with missing data. Okay, everything must be in order. Semua data kena ada. So one of the technique that you will do is that you impute. Okay, for example, we don't have the age for that person. So macam mana kita nak adakan age that person? There are so many techniques. Okay, one of them ialah by averaging that particular column. Okay, imputation, there are many averaging, ataupun kita tengok other elements. For example, ini adalah tadi kita kata age missing, for example, kita tengok gender, kita tengok few other things, and kita tengok data yang serupa dengan dia, so kita just ambil age yang serupa tu letak dekat dia. So there are so many techniques. You can also, bukan blame, but you can offer the explanation because of there are too much of missing data dalam your data set, and you use imputation average. That could affect the results. Okay, tapi jangan so certain. That's why you kata it might be, or perhaps it is because of, you know. Boleh faham ke? Alright, so that can help you explain kenapa results tak cantik. Okay, jangan sekali-kali bohong pasal results. You have to be very sincere and you have to be very honest about your results, but offer explanation why it is so. Okay, for example, some of my students, their silhouette value is very low, for example, but then we offer solution. Why is it so? What was the reason your silhouette value is low? So he can offer solutions, offer explanations such as it could be due to noisy data. That's why the silhouette, that's why clustering is not so crisp. Okay, that means it cannot distinguish between two classes. Okay, as long as there is explanation, it should be okay. Right. Okay, and then after you has addressed the limitations, then you suggest the future works. Okay, I think future works ni semua orang pandai buat kan. Okay, so I'm not going to stress a lot on that. Okay, tapi bear in mind that all these 6 elements are the building blocks of your discussion section. It is very important. This is how you do your discussion. Bukan simply sebut balik the results that you obtained in the previous section. Okay, any questions? Okay, now we move to connecting to research questions. We are going to have hands-on sekejap lagi, but I'm going to briefly explain connecting to research questions. Okay, for example, in connecting to research questions, which is one of the element di dalam structure of our discussion session tadi kan? Ingat ke? Saya rasa ramai dah lost ataupun couldn't care. Okay, make sure that discussion is very important for those who are doing research. Okay, kalau your discussion is so so plain, nothing, chances to get good grades tu memang tak tinggi.
Your evaluators evaluate you based on your report. If your report is boring and we have to read 8 of those, okay, you finish that sentence. Silakan.
Okay. Okay. I think if I were to give a talk to PSM students, I have to bring coordinator along with me. So she will emphasize what I want to say actually. Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, so connecting to research questions is one of the elements that we say very important, one of the building blocks in our discussion section. So what are actually connecting to research questions okay. So the first one is go back to your problem statement. This is how you connect to your research questions, okay. Revisit the original problems to frame your discussion. That's why at the very beginning of your discussion, okay, restate, okay, that means sebut sekali lagi pasal your problem. Okay, this is to tie dengan apa yang kita dah dapat. Okay, so second, how do your results answer your questions? Okay, this is where you need to directly link your findings to your research objectives. Okay, and finally, be explicit and precise. Okay, this is where you clearly explain how your results provide answers or insights. Okay, for example, when I say go back to your problem statement, basically you need to revisit your research problem or objective. It can be research problem, objective, hypothesis, research questions. Any one of them will do, as long as there is a linkage back to your chapter 1. Okay. This basically, when you do this, it helps the reader to recall what you set out in your investigation, right in the beginning of your investigation. Okay, because sometimes bila reader baca your thesis, sebab dah panjang kan, tiba-tiba masuk discussion dia dah lupa actually apa problem. Same thing goes to your supervisor, especially me. When the students come, they just say the result. I say, hey, hold on. What is your topic again? Sebab dia get excited, dia ingat saya ni ingat pasal research dia saja. Okay, that's why they come and oh my blah 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 blah. But then there are so many students, I read so many things. That's why reinstate ataupun restate to helps the reader to associate the problem with the discussion that you are making now, or with the results that you are going to describe. Okay, so begin with that. Okay, so it helps the reader to recall what you said at the very beginning of your investigation. Okay. Okay, and then when you come to the how do your results answer your question, okay, after we have related to the question or to the problem statement, okay, we have to say whether the hypothesis that we made, is it confirmed? Okay, remember, hypothesis adalah your thought. Kita kata, for example, kalau kita boleh make IDS ni can learn on its own, okay, disebabkan attack tu berubah-ubah, attack evolve, new attacks pun appear. Kalau kita boleh buat IDS ni learn on its own, definitely accuracy at least remain bagus, tinggi all the time. That is our hypothesis. That means, for example, if I can teach you programming, okay, for example, you pergikan programming 1, programming 2, okay. Kalau dulu, for example, I learn Pascal, you tak pernah dengar kot that language. Pernah ke?
Old school.
Fortran semua, you tak pakai kan? Saya guna Fortran for my numerical analysis class. I guna Pascal, and then because I learn Pascal dan juga I learn Fortran, when C came to the picture last time, masa I was in 3rd year or 4th year, then people introduce C. The knowledge that I learned from Pascal and Fortran, okay, in learning the programming languages can be applied because I'm very adaptive. Regardless of the new language comes, I should be able to adapt myself. Okay, same thing goes to my IDS. If there is a new attack, but if I can make my IDS learn on its own, it would be able to detect. Okay, so that is my hypothesis. So when I come to how do your results answer your research questions, okay, this is where I confirm my hypothesis, because the result, even though I put a new data set with a new attack that has not been seen before, it is a 0-day attack, okay, but the result is good. So I can confirm my hypothesis to say that this is due to the adaptability that I embed in my IDS. See, macam mana saya link with my hypothesis? Sebab I dah run eksperimen dengan data yang 0-day attack. You tahu kan 0-day attack? New attack. Okay, new attack that we haven't seen. For example, a new language that I haven't learned. Bagi C, but then of course I take some time to learn, but then eventually I master. Okay, that is due to the knowledge that we gave how earlier that make me more adaptive. Okay, so again, this is very important. How do your results answer to your questions is when you tie back to your hypothesis. You confirm betul lah hypothesis saya tu. Sebab saya run dengan 0-day, still okay accuracy dia. Kalau saya run dengan existing attacks, still okay result dia. So what else? Okay, that is to confirm your hypothesis. Okay, and also this is the place as well where okay, ini question kita tanya tadi, did you confirm your hypothesis or did you discover something unexpected that still informs your research questions? Perhaps there is something new as well. For example, masa saya buat traffic filtering, niat saya hanyalah satu, which is to reduce the workload. But then when I implemented traffic filtering, tiba-tiba my false alarm reduce, which is good. Okay, but I'm in dilemma. Should I highlight, even though I know that false alarm is very important, should I highlight it? Whereas dalam chapter 1, saya tidak expect traffic filtering will contribute to reduction of false alarm. Should I state or shouldn't I? Okay, but how should I state it?
Dia kena tengok cik aku pula nak jawab.
Tiba-tiba kita beli satu kereta, tiba-tiba dapat juga satu lagi kereta. Contoh. Okay, should you tell equally, for example, dua-dua kereta tu? Yeah, okay, your answer is good. Betul, your answer that I should. Tetapi the way I highlight it will be different. Sebab dalam my study, traffic filtering, bila kita buat traffic filtering, my hypothesis is that it will reduce the workload. So saya kena highlight benda tu dulu. But saya tune down sedikit. Okay, saya dah highlight ni, saya dah banyak dah highlight. Tapi I kena tune down a little bit to say that at the same time, it gives me reduction false alarm. And perhaps this could be explored further by next researcher ke, in the future work ke. So I tune down seorang. Okay, satu tu because I cakap beria, contoh for example, I'm the speaker, dia cakap Anazida will be the speaker, tiba-tiba Dr. Fazrina ni equally bercakap dengan saya dekat depan, so you get confused which one is, tapi tengok pada atur cara is Anazida, you know, jadi it will confuse the readers. Sama juga dengan your research, tiba-tiba you dapat result bagus on certain things, okay, tapi you kena tone down. You have to report but tone down. Jangan highlight sebesar, contoh, ya, Dr. Fazrina is helping me, tetapi don't highlight her. I'm not saying that she's good, it's just an example, okay. So you highlight what you promise in chapter 1. Jangan tiba-tiba false alarm, sedangkan dekat sana tak cakap false alarm, dekat sana cakap workload reduction. Okay, jangan confuse the readers. Kalau they get confused, the more trouble you will be in. Okay, right, so make it clear, cerita cantik but we report juga. Okay, so the art of tone up, tone down dalam writing. Okay, alright, so the last one is be explicit and precise. Clearly explain how your results provide answers or insights. Okay, jadi dekat sini avoid vague ataupun general statement sangat. Be precise, cakap straight. Okay, for example, instead of saying the results were interesting, ada juga student cakap the results obtained adalah agak interesting. Interesting, what do you mean? Okay, jangan sediakan jerat for you, okay? Interesting. Saya boleh tanya banyak questions, okay? Sepatutnya your assessment habis pukul 9, jadi habis pukul 11. Okay, because you are the one who gave us all this, avenue, kan? Betul kan, Jim? Okay, right. So,
one thing. It's academic writing, not creative writing.
exactly. Some students they guna bombastic words. Okay, kadang-kadang saya rasa, saya baca novel ke? Contoh kan, it is crystal clear, like a glass. Apa budak ni nak cakap? Cakap precise je lah kan. Accuracy banyak ni. Tak payahlah it is very crystal clear lah. Saya nampak terus kaca-kaca yang crystal clear. Don't do that. Okay, academic writing is straightforward and simple English. Okay. Okay, for example tadi kita kata, kalaulah kita boleh letak results is interesting, but I can say in different words. For example, the results indicate that algorithm A outperformed algorithm B in terms of accuracy, which supports our hypothesis about scalability. Nampak terus terang kan daripada interesting? Kita kata algorithm A ni memang scalable. That's why dia outperform algorithm B. Okay, clear? Biar orang dah tak payah tanya soalan lagi dah. Okay? Alright. Okay, now the activity ni Dr. Fazrina boleh conduct. Okay? Okay, sekarang ni kita nak buat some activity di mana kita nak link the results to the research questions ataupun problem statement ataupun your objective. Okay? Right. Okay, so the objective ialah untuk practice explicitly connecting results to research questions using a real example. This is the aim of our exercise. Okay. Jadi nanti saya akan bagi some results and also some research questions as well. Okay. For example, lepas ni you need to read the research question and also the results di bawah ni dekat slides below. Okay. Among the thing that you have to do ialah sama ada you can work in pairs ataupun small group ataupun nak work on your own pun okay. So based on the example that I'm going to give nanti, you have to answer these 3 questions. For example, what is the research question asking? Okay, or the problem statement or the objective. Second, does the result answer it clearly? Ingat tak kita kata tadi, kalau saya buat traffic filtering, dia reduce the workload. Adakah the results really answer reduction of the workload? Okay, so number 2. Does the result answer it clearly? Number 3, how would you write 1 or 2 sentences linking the result to the questions? Okay, work in 2% or 3%, tak apalah. Tapi not as one class. Banyak sangat. Banyak sangat. Okay, so macam mana you nak tulis benda ni? It's just few sentences, maybe just 3 lines. Okay, so later kita akan share your sentence with the class. Okay, these are the 3 things that you need to do. Now, let us look at the example, the research questions and also results. Okay, problem yang dia nak solve ataupun problem statement can a hybrid CNN LSTM, okay, model improve malware detection accuracy in Android apps compared to conventional ML ataupun machine learning models. Okay, jadi sebenarnya you dah dapat results and results tu dah ditulis pun dekat results punya section. Apa yang tulis ialah the hybrid kita dapati, based on the results, the hybrid CNN LSTM model achieved an accuracy of 96.4%, outperforming random forest. Okay, so basically ada 3 techniques dia compare dekat sini. CNN LSTM accuracy dia 96.4%, whereas the random forest 89.2% and SVM is 87.5% in binary classification task. Okay, remember, bila kita describe the result, kita tak offer pun opinion. Okay, kita just state apa result dia. That is result section. Tetapi nak offer opinion, nak offer sebab ke, and so on, must be offered in discussion. Okay, so based on this example, research question dia macam ni, result dia macam ni. Okay, so answer these 3 questions. Okay, what is the research questions asking? Does the result answer it clearly? And macam mana kalau you nak tulis? Okay, I give you 5 minutes to do that sebab you boleh bekerja up till berapa? Okay, 5 orang lah. Satu meja 5.
By table.
By table. 5 orang.
Why don't you, like, one person in the table take this question just now. Take this, take a picture of this, and then the slide yang ada
Okay.
result tu.
Example.
Yeah. So you take this and you discuss.
Okay. I give you 5 minutes to do that. Huh? Okay, each table ambil question. Representative from each table, at least one. Okay, and then this is the example. Nanti jemput saya walaupun saya pencen
Beli tak?
Nanti dekan pun cakap, kenapa dia ni mungkin masih lagi tidak boleh accept reality.
significantly outperforms. Previously kita tak nampak pun significant, but kita boleh nampak dia punya perbezaan in terms of angka. For example, 96.4, yang ni 89, itu pun dah almost 7%. Yang ni 87, lagi lah 9%. Okay, 8 to 9%. So minimum 7%, maximum 9%. So it is quite significant. Okay, jadi masa kita tulis discussion, you can use the word, for example, significant. Sebab 7 to 9%. Okay, so we can say that, okay, tadi hybrid model significantly outperforms traditional models, SPM dan juga random forest. Those are the traditional machine learning. Nampak tak kita interpret, kita boleh interpret or discuss in that context, okay? Sebab CNN, LSTM, they are deep learning models. Okay, and kita compare dengan conventional machine learning. So kita boleh buat kat sini kita okay, traditional machine learning effectively answering the research questions by demonstrating improved classification accuracy. Done, you are done. Okay, that means you are linking, you are emphasizing or confirming your hypothesis. Okay, by how much significant improvement that you have made. Okay. So that is the simple answer to the problem. Okay, now let us move to the next one is handling unexpected results. Okay, I believe that some of you, in fact, few of my students also get the unexpected results. Okay, so how do we deal with that? Okay, so handling expected results, okay, basically there are 4 things that we can do. The first one is acknowledge and explain. Kita jangan sembunyikan result tersebut. Okay, tiba-tiba hilang. Okay, sebab dia tak perform. Macam juga kalau kita ada anak, tiba-tiba seorang tu pelat, dia tak nak orang kenal anak you, simpan dalam bilik. That is not right. Okay, so you have to bring him or her out because that she or he is still your son. Okay, jangan sembunyikan. Same thing goes to your results. Okay, jadi kalau your results is not good as you expect, still tulis dalam your thesis. Okay, so acknowledge and explain. Jadi jangan ignore anomalies. Anomalies tu macam yang kita tak expect lah, something. Okay, tiba-tiba kita run 10 eksperimen. For example, eksperimen 1 sampai 7 semua bagus. Tiba-tiba eksperimen 8 when you run, tak cantik. For example, you ada 10 data set. Set 1 okay, set 2 okay, sampai set 8 tiba-tiba drop. Set 9 okay, set 10 okay. You nak report 1 hingga 7, 9 hingga 10, you cannot do that. Okay, you still report yang tak cantik. For example, you run semua 95% and above. Tiba-tiba data set nombor 8 result dia 76%. Of course dia cacat, right? Okay, cacat in the sense that compared to their siblings lah. Okay, but then if I were the person, if I were the researcher, what I'll do is that
That the mic as long as you speak, it should be
Okay, jadi what I'll do is that there must be something in the data set that makes the results bad. Betul tak? Sebab in other data set semua cantik. So you start your investigation on the data set itself. Katalah you investigate, you dapati satu distribution dia tak normal. Okay, for example, sampel yang contoh kita kata normal and attack. In other data sets, okay, dua-dua classes ni almost the same quantity. For example, set nombor 1 almost 50-50%, set nombor 2 65-35%, set nombor 3 60-40, set nombor 4 55-45. Distribution dia cantik. When it comes to data set 8, dia punya composition is 20 to 80%. Jadi dia skew sangat. Okay, then you bukan you blame, but you point to the data set itself. Data set is complex sebab distribution dia tak balance. It could be due to that. You boleh explain. Okay? Ataupun noisy data, tak balance. Okay, cari juga that from that aspect kalau you buat banyak data set. Okay? Right. Okay. Okay.
This comes the importance of your experiment, where you run all your experiments the same way, but the result is different. So kalau your eksperimen tak sama, kan, pasal tu kita minta you design, explain your experiment so that everything will be the same. Kalau eksperimen yang ini you buat, contohlah you nak test network kan, satu you test pagi, satu dataset you test petang, satu dataset you test malam. Sama ke output dia? So based if your eksperimen semua sama tapi output dia lain, kenapa dia lain? That is what you need to explore. Okay?
Okay, betul. And also sometimes because of weather, kalau data set you tu got to do with, for example, crops. Okay, for example, you predict crops, predict getah ke apa benda lah, prediction of the crops ni, tiba-tiba salah that month. Okay, bila you check balik, sebenarnya climate masa tu mungkin ada tsunami ke, ada benda, you know, that attribute to the results. Jadi kita kena tengok aspek lain yang mengapa results for that particular data set your prediction go off sangat-sangat. Okay, mungkin pada bulan tersebut ada blizzard. Okay, maybe, you know, taklah ini bukan dekat Malaysia lah, dekat negara lain lah ada blizzard. Okay, so cuba explain from other factors. Sebab apa your prediction off sangat. Yang lain macam bila you predict dengan the actual about 2% je beza or not more than 5%. Tapi for that particular month, okay, crops yang you predict jauh beza, maybe 20 to 30%. Then you start tengok what is the problem. Okay, offer the explanation. Okay. Okay, so it goes to the next one. Tadi acknowledge and explain. Lepas tu, after you acknowledge, ada anomaly blah blah blah, that month jatuh and so on, then you offer possible explanation to it or possible reasons. For example, you provide a logical or evidence-based explanation for the unexpected outcomes. Okay, so that means you try to make sense kenapa anomaly itu berlaku. Okay, kelainan tersebut berlaku, sama ada your prediction jauh ke, your accuracy and so on. So first, what I normally do is that I tengok pattern in the data. Apa bezanya data ni dengan data-data lain? Okay, I will look into the data first. Okay, then adakah betul after I look into the pattern of the data, adakah ia disebabkan oleh data set yang saya gunakan, or it could be model limitations. Okay, mungkin juga patterns dekat other data sets dia smooth. For example, patterns dia, for example, smooth. Okay, yang lain pun patterns dia smooth. Okay, tetapi when it comes to that particular data set, dia sangat dynamic. Okay, so we can say that, oh, perhaps the model itself tak boleh deal with dynamicity. Okay, it could be the data set, it could be the model yang kita gunakan, or it could be the algorithm. Macam saya cakap tadi, personal experience on SBM, working on the small data set, it works perfect. Okay, but when we work on the bigger data set scale, bigger scale, dia teruk, flop dia punya performance. Dan kita kata is a model limitations in terms of scalability. Dia tak boleh nak scale up. He cannot, he pula dah SBM. Sebab memang yang tak elok tu semua he. Tak ada, I'm just kidding. Off the record, I'm just kidding. Sebab ramai sangat mengantuk. No. So SVM ni tak perform when dia tak boleh deal with scalability. That means it is not scalable. The technique is not scalable. Okay? So not to blame it, but offer reason. Okay? Even though you are not completely certain. Sebab tu kita gunakan word perhaps. It could be due to. It might be. Okay, guna words macam tu. Jangan so certain. Kalau you guna so certain, saya akan minta you give me the justification. Provide me a reference to it. Tapi kalau you kata perhaps, saya tak boleh nak prosecute you because it's perhaps. Okay, mungkin. Okay, so use words yang macam tu when bila you nak start offering a reason to the unexpected results. Okay? Alright. Okay. And then tapi make sure reasons tu logik lah. Jangan reasons yang sebab Malaysia salji pada bulan tersebut. Tak pernah Malaysia salji, okey? Contoh kita kata crops prediction tadi kan. Kita kata mungkin getah, kita expect pengeluaran getah pada Disember 2024 ataupun 2027 atau 2025 sebanyak ini. Tapi when it comes 2025 Disember, tiba-tiba jauh sangat daripada kita prediction kita. So you offer Malaysia salji, which is what I try to say here is that offer reasons yang munasabah, okay, reasonable or logical reasons, okay. And then, next is avoid excuses. Jangan sebab kita kata, okay, because of the limited time, this is okay, because you say that if I can run the experiment, if I were given one more month extension, one month more extension, perhaps the result will be better. Sebab you boleh fine tune the parameter. Contoh, that is unreasonable excuses. Okay, jangan bagi excuses macam tu. Okay, so basically maintain a professional tone without shifting blame or justifying poorly. Sebab you shifting the blame to the time limit that you have. Your senior pun dapat 1 semester je buat PSM 2. Tiba-tiba your result teruk sebab you tak cukup masa. Kita bagi you masa lebih sikit daripada your senior ke? Sama je. Okay, so don't blame that. Okay, don't blame to the time, for example. Okay, time given, for example. Okay, dan juga avoid blaming the tools. Okay, ada juga student ni kata, oh sebab saya dapat yang free version banyak constraint. Is it my problem? I can ask that. Okay. Jadi jangan blame kepada tools, jangan blame kepada data set, okay? Ataupun jangan cakap I didn't have time to do that. Okay, that's why results is very poor. Okay, so instead explain the limitations of uncertainties as part of the scientific process, not as a defense. Okay, so that is how you can defend yourself. And lastly, show scientific curiosity. Okay, sepatutnya a good discussion dia kena ada some sense of curiosity ataupun ingin tahu. Okay, for example, you boleh gunakan surprises as opportunities to ask new questions or explore deeper insights. Okay, for example, mungkin there are anomalies in your work tadi. Okay, kenapa data kita kata result dia tak cantik bila dia berbentuk dynamic. Okay, jadi kita boleh associatekan dengan model. Maybe the model cannot deal with dynamicity. And then you offer maybe this model can be modified, certain parts of the model where it can handle dynamicity and so on. So dia open up another research pula kepada how can we custom the model to work with dynamic data. Okay, so nampak ke arah situ Or again, it can be a flaw in the assumptions. Okay, mungkin juga results dia tu tak bagus sebab kita assume. Okay, this is very true. For example, my student work on misbehavior detection dekat VANET or Vehicle Ad Hoc Network. Okay, in most cases, in the previous study, kita assume majority tu adalah honest so that we can make a decision. Okay, tetapi no one has ever thought that what if itu adalah general assumption we made when we work on misbehavior detection. Okay, tetapi nowadays with a botnet attack, okay, it may impact. For example, there are how many of you here? Okay, 35 or 40 of you, right? Okay, kalau 35 of you, because last time kalau let's assume 40 of you, kalau majority, that means ada 10 orang kata not true, ada 30 cakap true. I will believe the 30 because that is honest majority. That is a common assumption when we work with misbehavior detection dekat Vehicle Ad Hoc Network, because car to car dia boleh communicate. Tapi takkanlah semua orang jahat. Kereta-kereta tu jahat, right? So that was the assumption. But nowadays with botnet attack, it may impact the 30 of you. Hanya 10 je betul. How can, that means that particular assumption is no longer true. So kalau you lihat misbehavior detection punya research nowadays, this is quite hot issues. Okay, because the assumption that they normally use in their study is no longer true. Okay, sebab dia dah diserang oleh botnet. Okay, so can I still say that majority honest? No. Okay, so what is the solution? Macam mana saya nak tahu bahawa okay, the information yang I receive ni integrity dia masih ada? Because I cannot ask my neighbors are infected dah. Okay, so we are thinking to find ways, you know, how can we work with that. So that is assumption. Begitu juga when we talk about handling unexpected results. Perhaps, okay, the assumption that kita dah establish earlier tu salah. Okay, salah lah kalau saya guna honest majority in the situation whereby most of my neighbors impacted by botnet attack, then my assumption is wrong. That explain why my results is bad. Kan? Okay, so that could be one of the explanation bila kita ada unexpected results. Okay, so as a conclusion, embracing the unexpected. Okay, for example, jangan rasa, oi, my research is not good. Okay, sebab I dapat results macam ni. Sebab unexpected results adalah a natural thing to happen to your research. It happened to me too. Okay, and then it happened to her too, I believe. It happened to Miss Hazina as well. Okay, so it's a natural process. Okay, but how to handle that? Okay, so how you discuss them shows your maturity and insights. Okay, we discuss and offer reasons to it. Okay, and then treat them as a learning opportunities, not a mistake. Okay, learning for others. Okay, sebab you dah end your project. And then thoughtful analysis of anomalies can lead to valuable future research. Okay, perhaps somebody can carry on with your research. Okay, now we have an activity making sense of the unexpected. Okay, objective dia kita kena practice identifying unexpected results and discussing them constructively. Ya. Okay. Saya ada sample results and draft discussion paragraph. Nanti saya akan tunjukkan again in one table among yourself. What was the unexpected result? Daripada writing saya akan share sekejap lagi. Is it acknowledged clearly dalam the article, dalam the paragraph itself, and does the explanation show critical thinking? Okay, ini semua your opinion when you read the snippets yang saya akan bagi nanti. And how could the paragraph be improved? Okay, now this is the example. Okay, sample results dalam konteks machine learning for spam detection. For example, the model achieved only 78% precision on SMS spam detection, significantly lower than anticipated. Okay, kita anticipate dia tinggi. Okay, tetapi bila kita run the experiment, dia bagi kita 78% saja. So unexpectedly, okay, ini adalah results kita tulis. Okay, so the precision dropped when stop words were removed from the pre-processing pipeline. So basically, based on the literature, dia kata kalau kita buang stop words ni bila kita deal with text, okay, spam adalah text kan, textual data. Jadi dalam textual data tu ada word macam to, in, on, the, those are all the stop words. Okay, so literature cakap for textual data kita kena buang stop word untuk improve the accuracy. So kita buang lah, tapi bila kita buang tiba-tiba result lagi teruk. Inilah yang berlaku dalam kes ni. Okay, that means dia hanya dapat 78%, sedangkan dia dah buang dah stop words. Okay, dalam pre-processing ya. That means okay, unexpectedly the precision dropped when stop words were removed from the pre-processing pipeline. Sedangkan literature kata it should improve. Okay. Jadi dalam discussion dia dah draft macam ni. The model's precision decreased to 78% when stop words were removed, which was unexpected. As we hypothesized that stop word removal would improve model clarity and also accuracy. One possible reason is that some spam messages use common stop words in suspicious patterns. Apa dia cakap ialah dia offer a solution. Sebab biasanya spam ni message dia tak besar, tak panjang. Dia short messages saja because this is SMS. Right? Jadi dia punya hipotesis ataupun dia punya pendapat ialah mungkin sebenarnya yang kita buang tu sebenarnya signifikan kepada SMS. Okay, spam SMS. Faham tak? Contoh kita kata kita nak recognize you, kita tengok muka. Tapi dalam muka tu kita buang hidung you, kita ingat tak important. Sebab stop words, hidung je kita buang. Tapi bila kita buang, tak boleh recognize lah Solihin ataupun Qayyim sebab tak di, bukanlah tak di hidung, maksud dia orang lain lah. Abu ke apa benda, kita buang hidung Abu, contoh. Tak boleh recognize Abu. Okay? Sebenarnya walaupun abu tu being said by others, hidung tu being said by others dalam literature tak important untuk kenal orang. For example, untuk identify or recognize a person, hidung is not important. So kita buang hidung, tapi data set kita ialah spam, which is also a very short text. Jadi disebabkan orang kata hidung tak important, kita pun buang hidung daripada kita semua. Tiba-tiba kita tak boleh recognize. And what the explanation here says is that maybe untuk short messages, hidung is important. Okay, for example, untuk glimpse, contoh, sebab most of the articles dia panjang, right? So kita buang stop words, it will not affect. Tetapi untuk messages yang pendek, dia affect, especially spam. Sebab spam, feature itu penting untuk spam. Contoh, kalau saya nak buat analogi tadi, untuk recognize a person, kalau saya tengok your image lama, hidung tak important. True. But if I were just somebody just flash je your image, hidung is important. You faham the analogy? Same things. Dia offers explanation macam tu dekat sini ya. Okay, example, you have one which the model learn to associate with spam. Okay, you have one. Okay, biasanya dalam spam akan ada you have one. Tapi have tu adalah the stop words. Kalau kita buang, it may impact sebab phrase tu sangat associated dengan spam. Nampak tak dia offer the solution macam tu which the model learn to associate with spam. So removing them may have weakened this signal. Okay, signal yang ianya spam. So while this contradicts conventional pre-processing practices, it suggests that stop words may carry more semantic value in short text messages than previously assumed. Okay, itulah discussion bila dia nak handle the unexpected results tadi. Okay, again. Okay, your job apa tadi? This is your job. Boleh tak you identify, for example, apa the unexpected results? Apa yang being acknowledged clearly? Is it being acknowledged clearly? Ketiga, does the explanation show critical thinking tak bagi you? For example, and lastly, how could the paragraph be improved? Okay, so based on this, just 2 minutes sebab kita tak ada masa dah. It's almost 4. Ada kelas ke? Okay ke? Nampak tak tadi? This is the questions. Okay everyone, this is the question and this is the example. Okay, the discussion paragraph is this. Oops. Okay, just 2 minutes. So identify yang kita tadi. Apa yang what was the unexpected result? Dalam the paragraph tadi ada, adakah it is being acknowledged clearly? The third one, does the explanation show critical thinking? Dia offer reasoning. Is it logical reasoning yang dia bagi? And finally, how could the paragraph be improved if you don't agree with one of them? Bagi dia exercise. 2 minutes guys. Jawab je soalan. someone, what was the unexpected? Koyim, apa unexpected? Huh? Unexpected dia stop word. Removing. Yes. That is the unexpected. That means once they remove, okay, group 1 says that, bila saya tanya question number 1, what was the unexpected result? The unexpected result is that when stop words are removed, drop. That is unexpected. Okay, second, is it acknowledged clearly? Yes. Okay, I agree with that. Does the explanation show critical thinking?
Yes, because say the possible reason.
Okay, what was the reason?
Because some of the SMS, some of the suspicious type of SMS use common stop word.
Okay, that is reasoning, which is, to me, it is acceptable as well. Okay, because that's why they give example to convince. You pun macam tu juga. Kalau you ada unexpected, give example to convince your explanation, to convince the readers that your explanation tu valid. Okay, and then okay. Okay. So no improvement sebab dah bagus dah. Okay. So in terms of discussion, after we have seen tadi, kita nampak that actually the author take ownership, right? Dia acknowledge, so they take ownership of the unexpected results, and dia juga explore the possible reasons why the results was like that. Okay, and then did you see any blaming or excuse making in the explanation? No. Okay, that means the author is doing the right thing. And is curiosity or openness to future investigation shown? Which part? Okay, sebab dia offering that actually removing stop words, dia sebenarnya contrast, dia offering a contrast opinion daripada most of the researchers sebelum ni, which says that if we remove the stop words, it's going to improve. So they are actually, the author ni is contradicting with the common knowledge, which opened up a new research basically, sebab dia bagi explanation. Sebab spam ni sejenis yang pendek dan some of the stop words might be significant to spam. So after this, somebody else can carry with the research. Okay, so to me, curiosity or openness to future investigation is shown is right. It is shown. Okay, how would you improve this paragraph? No need. Senang je. Okay. Alright. Okay, now we move to the do's and don'ts. Okay, quickly ya, sebab masa pun dah almost 4. Okay, I just give you the 3 do's and the 3 don'ts. Okay, so basically in doing discussion, what you need to do is use clear and objective languages. Okay, for example, you have to write in a straightforward, unbiased manner that reflects scientific reasoning. Okay, avoid exaggeration. Okay, avoid bombastic word. Okay, ada juga student dia, this experiment was among the first in the world. Saya rasa dia ni shock sendiri. Okay, banyak student buat macam tu. Okay, you don't overclaim, don't exaggerate. Okay, don't exaggerate. Okay, avoid exaggeration or overly emotional language. Okay, for example, if your result is 100%, everywhere 100%, sebenarnya we become more suspicious. Okay, kalau 99.3, 98, I'm okay. Okay, tapi kalau semua 100%, betul ke ni? That's why kita kata, okay, buka kod, cuba run. Tapi janganlah memang you dapat 100%, tiba-tiba you tulis dalam thesis 99.3% sebab tak nak disoal. Okay, don't do that, because you have to be honest. Okay, maybe after all it is 100%, but it is quite, it's quite, macam itulah kita as an examiner. Okay, we feel like betul ke 100% ni? Okay, tapi be honest kalau 100% and offer explanation. Okay, maybe because of you buat the binning technique that resulted in discrete data range ke apa benda that contribute to a better result. Okay, it's okay. Okay, and try to keep it professional and let the strength of your result speaks through the clear and logical interpretation. That's why I told my student that kalau boleh, okay, research, not you lah, postgraduate students, I don't want to take research yang for example yang non-technical or non-numerical. It's so difficult to explain sebab you play with words. Kalau your results is in terms of numerical 78%, 98%, the results is itself speaks. You don't have to tambah-tambah lagi, dia dah speaks dah. You cuma tulis, for example, the maximum accuracy is how much improvement. You just kira mathematics saja. Okay, you don't put, how do I say, inflate, okay, your results. Okay, that is number 1, use the clear and objective language. Number 2, support your claims with data. Okay, ensure that every interpretation is backed by evidence from your results. Okay, when you say that your results improve from the previous work, then maybe you show a graph or you show a table. It is shown, right? So don't make any assumptions or stretch interpretations without evidence. Ada juga kita dapat macam you run epochs ni loops banyak kali you run sampai 50 and this is the result, and you assume that the curve ataupun dia punya slope, okay, for example from 20 to 50 slope dia macam ni, okay, and you assume that from 50 to 100 pun slope macam tu. It is not true. You are stretching. That is an example you stretch. You just run sampai 50 epochs. Tapi you assume that kalau you continue with the epoch until 100, slope this tetap sama. You cannot assume that. Maybe after 60, dia akan plateau. Dia akan straight line je. Okay, jangan stretch. Jangan assume that kalau slope ini beginilah selamanya. Okay, that is not true. Okay, so do not do that. Kalau you run sampai epoch 50 lah you report. That means berapa slope dia and so on. Okay, ataupun dia dah start slowing down improvement after iteration ke 30 for example, dah slow down. Report sampai situ je lah. Okay, don't overstretch your results. Okay, if you are making a claim, point to the data, a graph, a metric or a comparison. If you say that 7% improvement, tunjuk dekat table tu. The table says so, row 3, row 4 for example, 7% improvement. And point to the graph. For example, you say that with your method, the retraining only can be only done twice compared to previous method 4 times. Then tunjuk di mana the learning part, your proposed method, okay, which is twice, okay. And then number 3, be honest about limitations. Okay, so this is where you acknowledge any constraints that could influence the interpretation of your findings. Okay, whether it is a small size ke, lack of real-time testing or algorithmic assumptions, kita kena mention it. Okay, that's why you have to be honest about limitations. Okay, for example, maybe results you bagus bila dataset kecil. Okay, or small sets and so on. Anyway, you have to be honest about the limitations, okay? And then the don'ts, introduce a new data. Ini pun ramai student buat macam ni. Dekat scope, dia kata 2 dataset. Tiba-tiba dalam eksperimen, dia introduce another dataset. Discussion pun tiba-tiba jadi 4 dataset. Tak boleh buat macam tu. You cannot introduce a new dataset. Dah stage akhir. Okay? Stage akhir where you have to do experiments and discussion. Okay, and then do not overstate your findings. Do not claim more than your data can reasonably support. Ada juga orang yang buat yang overstate the findings. Dia exaggerate lah basically. Dia tambah-tambah dia punya data. Dia punya findings. For example, avoid phrases like proves or definitely or definitively shows. Jangan guna word strong sangat. Okay, cakap macam tu je, tak payahlah. It will definitely solve the problem. It solve the problem pun okay. Okay, jangan kuat sangat, jangan tekan kuat sangat. Okay, so that is that means do not overstate your findings. Instead, you boleh guna words like suggest. The result suggests that SVM is better than blah 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 blah. Okay, sebab you tak boleh overclaim sebab you test sikit je data set, and then you tiba-tiba nak cakap SVM ni bagus daripada random forest. You test sikit je. Okay, jangan overclaim. Sebab tu kita kata apa-apa yang findings kita bergantung kepada data set that we use in our experiment. Bergantung kepada our experiment. Bergantung kepada data set. Okay, jangan overclaim. Or you instead of you cakap indicates ataupun you boleh guna it is consistent with. Okay, guna word-word macam tu. Overstating results can damage the credibility of your report. Okay, and lastly, you tak boleh ignore contradictory evidence. For example, dekat kes ni, for example, you kena address unexpected or conflicting results rather than leaving them out. Okay, there are times where your results challenge the expectations. Di mana kita expect A jadi B, for example. Ada kes macam tu, macam tadi unexpected results. How do we handle that? Kalaulah macam tadi kita kata stop words removal, right? Sepatutnya majority dalam literature cakap it will improve the results. Tiba-tiba when you work on your experiment, dia contradict. Kita kena sebut juga, jangan ignore the contradictory, tapi offer a solution. Itu adalah contradict. Okay, other people buat macam ni, cantik results dia. Tapi bila you buat untuk your data set, tak cantik. There must be a reason. So offer explanation. So this is where sebenarnya people can assess, reader like me or your examiner can assess how critical you are. Okay, because kita tengok the logical explanation yang you bagi. Okay, so to conclude, okay, writing, bila kita menulis, write with integrity and also clarity. Be honest and straightforward. Okay, jadi for example, your discussion akan jadi strong if it is very clear, explicit. Kita tak payah duk fikir-fikir, tak adalah interesting result, tapi result in terms of, okay, instead of using the subjective words, okay, guna exact or precise words. Okay, and then your language should reflect the accuracy, not the exaggeration. Okay, macam overstretch and so on tadi. And writing responsibly show you understand not just the what but the why. Okay, kalau thesis tu hanya report, you tak payah tulis, tak apa, I can see your table. Okay, what I'm looking ialah the interpretation. Kenapa dia jadi macam tu? Okay, adakah dia conflicting with the literature or dia confirm the existing knowledge? Okay. Okay, hands on is the last part. Saya tak tahu, should I proceed? Tak perlu. Nak ke tak nak?
We can ini yang dia kena buat for their research.
Yeah.
I think we can give them as homework. Dia kena buat benda ni dijumpa supervisor.
Okay, boleh? Okay, I just explain. Okay, good suggestion. Okay, we give your supervisor to some of you, 8 of you, I'm your supervisor. Okay, so okay, never mind. Okay, the hands-on first ialah for you to identify the key findings. I'm going to give you the slide, so it's okay. Okay, nanti saya bagi dekat Miss Zainal, nanti dia share. Okay, choose 1 or 2 most important results from your work. Lepas tu write them clearly. Think about why they matter. Why results you dapat tu matter. Okay, next. Okay, interpret the results. Tadi baru kita kata identify key findings. Okay, identify key findings. Next, kita interpret the results. Apa the results mean? Okay, how do they relate to your research questions? Okay, ni kita nak tie back. Remember the 6 important elements, the building blocks of your discussion section. These are the things that we are going to do. And are they expected? Kalau they expected, then okay lah. Kalau tak expect, then refer kepada how to handle the unexpected results. Okay? Next, dekat sini you tulis dulu. Okay, satu lagi tips yang saya nak bagi, when you write a thesis, do not write full sentence terus untuk satu section. What I normally do is that I put the vital organs dulu. For example, untuk result saya letak graph, saya letak table. Lepas tu baru saya offer 2 lines of explanation. When I have time nanti, you know, everything is there, then I construct a paragraph. Jangan duduk construct terus paragraph. Tak boleh macam tu. That is not how we write. I mean, we write and we do the work. Okay, sebab kita researcher. Today kita run this experiment, tomorrow kita dah move to another experiment. Jadi apa-apa kita run today, contoh results ni kita masukkan, tulis sedikit some notes untuk nota, this result is actually untuk buat apa, you run apa benda, put some notes je. Tapi bukannya the actual words of your thesis. Okay, hanyalah a notes to the results. Besok maybe you run with another data set, masukkan lagi. Okay, so when for example end of the week, then you tengok balik, then you start susun and you start blow. Okay, ataupun you expand nota you tu kepada paragraph. Okay, eventually you will get a complete chapter. Okay, bukannya you duduk buat tajuk, tulis ayat, it's not like that. Okay, macam you buat rumah juga, you buat skeleton of the house dulu, structure. Okay, then you start letak dinding, for example, you letak tiles terus ke you letak tiles terus you buat rumah? Tak kan? So or you cat will be the last part, that is polish. Okay, or you improve, or for example, kalau you mengecat rumah tu at the end of the fasa pembinaan rumah, in terms of thesis, you cantikkan formatting, you letak bold yang dekat mana, italic dekat mana, and so on. Okay, but then build your thesis like building a house. Okay, make sure there is a structure first. For example, chapter 1 akan ada berapa subsection, akan ada berapa sections, what are the title of those sections and what are the title for the subsections. Okay, and then after that start putting dinding dia pula, for example, put results. Okay, and so on. Okay. Okay, so interpret the results. What do these results means? How do they relate to your research questions, and are they expected? Last steps adalah implications and limitations. What you need to do is you can identify what does this result imply, how could it be applied, and what are the limitations, okay, of your results. And then lepas tu sepatutnya you tukar dengan kawan you, kita buat peer review and feedback. Okay, so this is one example. For example, intrusion detection, sebab hands on tadi you boleh buat dekat you and you boleh juga apply dekat sini. For those yang tak ada result, I just prepare sekiranya kita buat tak ada results tapi kita nak buat dalam kelas, ya. For example, dalam ni case ni, an intrusion detection experiment using a deep learning based LSTM model on the NSL KDD Cup KDD dataset. Our model achieved detection accuracy of 98.7%, significantly outperforming traditional machine learning baselines such as SVM 92.3% and random forest 94.1%. Okay, sepatutnya from these particular results you boleh follow this. This is the results you obtain. Okay, jadi you boleh buat step 1, breakdown for the discussion untuk restate the key results. Okay, macam mana kita cakap? For example, based on results tadi, how I restate is that I can write our proposed LSTM based IDS model achieve a high accuracy of 98.7%. Next step. Now we are breaking them down to steps, kan? Kalau tadi kita ada 3, tapi untuk steps saya pecah kepada 6. 3 tadi roughly 2 steps for each fasa. Okay, after that I interpret the results. Okay, macam mana saya tulis for the interpretation of the results? I put here the results suggest that the temporal modeling capability of LSTM. So sekarang saya tunjukkan what are the benefits of using LSTM that makes accuracy improve. Apa dia punya kelebihan? Dia ada temporal modeling capability. So I associatekan the accuracy based on the benefits of that model. Okay, so I put temporal modeling capability of LSTM network are highly effective in identifying patterns of network attacks. Okay, for example, kalau Koyim dia buat apa teknik GNN. For example, Qayyim buat GNN techniques. So dia graphical neural network. So macam mana, for example, result dia cantik juga. Okay, cantik lah. Okay, cantik. So dia boleh associatekan because of the technique that link the nodes tu. Okay, same thing. Try to relate. Okay, particularly those involving sequential data sebab dia temporal. Jadi dia kata dalam kes ni LSTM tu bagus sebab data dia adalah temporal. Data dia adalah sequential. Temporal means time. Time pun sequential. Jadi dia match. Data berbentuk sequential and teknik berbentuk temporal. Ngam. Okay, that's why result dia bagus. Okay, nampak tak di link the two, the suitability of the model to the data set that explain the accuracy. Okay, such as denial of service or probing attacks. Okay, and then it goes by comparing the literature. Remember, this is one of the steps dalam discussion. Lepas kita restate the key results, then kita interpret the results, then kita compare with the literature. That is done in step 3. Step 4, okay, discuss the implications. Okay, blah 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 blah. You can read. Okay, and then followed by address the limitation. Tadi kita dah ada limitation, so macam mana nak address the limitations, and you go to the future works. So those are the 6 steps that you need to do when you do discussion. Okay, ini adalah discussion in the full paragraph. Okay, example yang saya buat tadi, I put together and it becomes a paragraph of discussion. Okay, of course, if you put tables, if you put graphs, dia akan jadi longer. Okay, and then another example on optimization scheduling for the cloud. Okay, ni pun I break down into 6 steps. Nanti you tengok, okay, based on this example and apply the same steps to your discussion. So by the end, you should be able to get full example. Okay, that's ends my presentation. If you have any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
How can we not use, how should we not rely on ChatGPT to do our discussions?
How can we not?
Yes.
Can you rephrase, how can we use?
How can, we shouldn't use.
Okay,
We shouldn't use ChatGPT.
okay.
The reason for not using ChatGPT is ChatGPT doesn't have the ability to connect to your research question, to connect to your problem background.
Exactly.
He doesn't do that.
Okay.
Again, sorry, but don't use ChatGPT.
Okay. Okay.
I answer my own question.
Okay. But okay, for example, kalau you dah construct your own, tapi in terms of baiki the sentence, you can ask ChatGPT. Just baiki the sentence, not but not to construct discussion. Okay. You have to be critical lah. Takkanlah nak semua ChatGPT. Your brain guna. Nanti you cepat nyanyuk tau. By the age of 40 dah nyanyuk. Suka tak? Tak suka kan? Macam 40 pun dah sinai. You have to use your brain tau. That's why even though saya akan retire in one month, is it? 1 month time. But I still read thesis. Okay? I just want myself to be not go senile. Macam itulah. So make sure that you use your brain, so that. Okay. Last, I'm going to show one example of student punya. Ni adalah Syahir punya. Syahir back in 2017. Chapter 5 of Syahir, one our student juga, PSM bawah our group, okay. So results, analysis and discussion normally they lump into chapter 5. Chapter 6 is the conclusion. Chapter 4 is the experiment. Chapter 3 is methodology. Okay, ini kita panggil 5 chapter thesis. Okay, so if you look at it. Okay, basically he is modifying the grounded based framework. Okay. Okay, attributes yang dipakai, di report the attributes yang dipakai. And then untuk new framework, okay, these are all the candidates. Okay, then dia pakai hanya this framework. Of course, they offer explanation why these particular attributes were chosen. and then macam mana dia implement the attributes that he identified tadi kepada modified framework. Okay, ini adalah the new modified framework, and in chapter 2 he already mentioned or he already discussed the original framework. Okay, so he just mapped to his domain. Okay, next process, they take the available data into the framework to profile. So this is the mapping process that he did. And then proceed with, because his work is on threat actor profiling, so he will produce a threat actor profile. Okay, so these are the characteristic or the elements or the attributes of the profile. For example, these are the characteristic, apa dia catalyst and so on. Okay, he show with some examples applying to the real data, which is from from data set. I can't remember what is the name of the CVE, from the CVE, okay, from the CVE. Okay, so basically this ends the discussion. Betul ke? Maybe saya salah print kok. Ada lagi pages. Tapi what you can do, kita tak expect lah you to be like PhD student. Okay, as long as you can relate back to your hypothesis, okay, and then why the result is so and so on, itu pun dah enough. So kalau you nak, nanti saya bagi a complete chapter 5 of him. And
it possible kan? A good example is a good example. But right on your own.
Ya. Jangan.
Sebab selalu student minta ada tak yang pasir ni? And then they write like that person. The tongue is different. Right on
Okay.
your own. It's your project. It will be better.
Yes,
Okay?
true. Okay, and the last one, a discussion that I did for my study. Saya akan tunjuk sikit on the discussion. Okay, discussions towards the end. Kalau you tengok dekat sini, these are all the results. For example, traffic filtering reductions, all these results. Okay, results. And then when it comes to discussion, so kita tunjuk dulu results. Dalam results, kita tak offer any opinion. Okay, no interpretation. Simply state the results. Okay, when it comes to results and discussion, dekat sinilah kita cakap kenapa retraining tu berlaku, summarizes and what happened. I managed to reduce the number of retraining. The significant test also confirmed that the improvement is really significant. Okay, and then results against another data set. Okay, this is another data set against the baseline. This is the benchmarking. Okay, all these elements must be in discussion, the comparison. But in terms of, maybe you discuss in terms of table, in terms of graph, it doesn't matter as long as you can show the comparison. Okay, so I put in the table as well. This is the improvement made, in terms of accuracy and also improvement and so on. So at the end, comparison, for example, the baseline, and this is what I achieved, and also this is another model. Okay, and then summary, end of your discussion. Okay, that's all for today. If you have any questions, you can ask Dr. Fazrina and also Miss Hazina and me as well, if I'm still around. Okay, all right, any last question?
I think there is no question.
Okay,
I think we can close it here.
all right.
With the hopes that you have learned something. There is a lot of things. You have learned something and you can apply it in your report.
Nanti saya bagi.
Okay, because you have the ability to write. You just don't use your brains. One day you're going to do on the right side and your brain is going to come up from your ears because you don't use it. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Anazida.
Okay.
With your prayers, doakanlah anak ni supaya dapat report yang bagus.
Semua.
Terima kasih.
Anak sendiri dan anak angkat semua. Okay, insyaAllah.
Okay.